Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and we're back to another live stream of Shadowverse. Why does my microphone sound so funky? May just be that I haven't streamed in a while. Yeah, so I'll live with that one. Maybe it's just that the microphone's not close enough. That sounds better. Um, so, yeah, I was falling asleep on Friday and only did an hour of what should have been 2 or 3 hours of streaming. Uh, for the accountability section over the weekend, I got very, very much enthralled in the idea of playing new Pokemon Snap. So I spent a lot of time doing that. I spent a lot of time watching Seinfeld on Netflix, which is really scraping the bottom of the barrel as far as watching content. And other things on Netflix too. Just very distracted this weekend. I've been crazy with the insomnia, just waking up at like 5 in the afternoon and then staying up until like 6 in the morning, 7, even 8, 9, 10 in the morning, but then being so sleepy at that time. It was definitely a situation where I could have streamed at 10 this morning and then I would have just gotten sleepy again and not finished. So I'm really failing to play Mirror's Edge Catalyst, and I really need to play Mirror's Edge Catalyst because I don't know if my computer is fixed or not, and I'm not putting it through its paces. It's kind of an avoidance thing. And I'm getting distracted on 4 or 5 different side projects that I don't need to be distracting myself consistently with. My computer did just lock up and reset just before I streamed, but that very well, it looked like an NVIDIA driver issue. I'm wondering if it's just a case that the NVIDIA drivers are bad with the latest NVIDIA control panel, or if it is just a case of switching the video output is just kind of this weird switching system that's happening where going from like the Nintendo Switch input to one TV back to the computer might just be causing it trouble. New selection pack apparently is here. Ruler's Mask, which is kind of exactly what we needed, and they're definitely not doing it as big fanfare. They should have been hyping that up. There's a now new mission, apparently, for the normal and rare festival. The good news is that they definitely did give us a more reasonable amount of time as far as like what is needed. There's 2 days left on this, and clearly I've missed nearly a whole week of logging in for daily rewards, so I've been really bad about that. Let's see, inflict damage to your opponent to give you even more gems and win a duel 10 times in the exhibition. Hopefully that's 10 times in total, not 10 times to get to this, then even more, then even more. But you can see, as far as the campaign and other stuff, I'd already kind of made that progress. Or otherwise continuing to make progress as far as just these unlimited missions, which hopefully that does give us a hint and hope that there is going to be a higher amount of unlimited missions added at a later point, so that you don't have players that got in on the ground floor effectively like getting all the unlimited missions and just being capped out and then not really having a reason to play anymore. It is always a delicate balance on these free-to-play games to not have people jump too far ahead, but also not have a significant number of players who are just maxed out and then get bored with the game. And it is very odd that I am maxed out with gems, and now we can fix that. Remember, we need at least 600 gems for the next Duel Pass, which is about to end. And the way they could really screw us here is if there was a new selection pack, and then the new selection pack actually got replaced with yet another new selection pack in the next couple of weeks. So there just would not be enough time to actually get all the cards or rebuild your gem amount. So ideally you would want to hype here, and you would want to make a special pack opening video where you're opening 50 packs of it, but it's just not, I'm just not energized there enough to try and make a special video that's just pack opening, so we'll just do it here. And we may very well get to a point where once a week we are going to have to just open a 10 pack of cards just to keep our gems somewhat in check, although I question that. I played one game and it said that no win in 3 turns or something was the reason why the game just abruptly ended. And I have no idea what the deal with that would have been. So as far as accessories go, I was already being pushed into buying the last bits of the mates. Which means now every single thing here has been purchased. This ends in 6 days, so we need 600 for that. There could be a new bundle. Like, there's no real indication that this bundle ever goes away, but I kind of feel like it would. At any point, they could add a new structured deck, which would be something. And we certainly have a problem with that. Alright, so select pack. Where is it? It's not this one. It's not this one. And I don't think there'd be a real good reason to open these packs. So what is that selection pack they were talking about? Let's see. Maybe this is the advertisement in the hype here. A new selection pack has arrived. Date available April 3rd. Okay. So it's not quite there. So the pack is called Ruler's Mask. And then there's another pack called Beyond Speed. This ends Stalwart Force and Revival of Legends at the same time. Okay. So think that explains things a little bit better. Let's play a little bit of normal and rare. I'm not particularly jumping between the different loner decks, which there's still just 3 loner decks, or a custom deck. It seems like you get 500 for a win regardless if it's loner or custom. That's something they fixed from the first time. It seems like you get 50 if you make it to the end and lose. So it's just all about winning. I think I'm somewhere around 8,000. And once we get to 10,000, you get a 300 boost of gems. And it's kind of gravy after 10,000 with legendary pack tickets. And once the new expansions come out, we'll probably buy about 50 of one select pack, 50 of another, and then we'll probably buy at least 100 of the legacy packs, if not all of them. Let's see. Do I have anything else I need to talk about? I don't really feel like it. It's video game news, but the Texas Pinball Festival didn't happen this year, and I've been paying fairly well attention to it. From the videos I saw, it had about 400 tables I heard, where I was thinking somewhere around 1,100 tables would be available, but 400 may very well be more than enough, and I may just be thinking fairly greedily in my mind. It didn't feel like it was super overpopulated or crowded on the footage I saw for the third final day. Of course, you probably want to get in on the first day before all the tables start breaking. I didn't see a lot of kids. I just don't think there are a ton of kids that play pinball. It's a lot of, frankly, old people in their late 30s or older that remember playing pinball when they were kids. So you would think it would be a lot more kid-friendly. It's kind of a great example of just there's I think about 2 rows of this where it's just pinball table after pinball table, and then there was a few booths and a few special like displays of specific newer pinball tables. You'd kind of want for popular tables for there to be like 2 copies of the table. This is Doctor Who pinball, the old Doctor Who pinball, I believe. And one of the old actors of Doctor Who was there selling, I'm sure, signed autographs. But a lot of the other ones seem to be mostly not that different. What's interesting here is you have a Hot Wheels table and then what looks like a different table, unless it's some kind of mod to a Hot Wheels table. Then you have a Hot Wheels table, and then that same second pinball table, which alternating Legends of Valhalla is what it says this is. And that's kind of more what I would have liked to see for every table. But I just don't know if there's that many people here. You can see Cactus Canyon and Cactus Canyon. There was 8 Cactus Canyon remakes on display, and specifically brought by Chicago Gaming, one of the pinball manufacturers. And I guess pinball manufacturers can afford to ship and have 8 machines, where most of these machines are brought by individual owners. Mandalorian Pinball, also a newer pinball that is being sold fairly frequently, so having 2 or 3 copies of that makes some sense. Uh, but then you have like some really old tabletop historical pinball tables on display as an exhibit, not to really play. And this is some like first generation pachinko style tabletop pinball machines, wooden. Most of these were burnt due to a prohibition effectively on pinball. So they're extremely rare and probably extremely valuable, although pinball tables tend to be extremely valuable anyways. Yeah. There's not a lot of food or drink that's shown that I saw. And obviously you kind of don't want people bringing food to the pinball tables. I actually have to play here, don't I? Wow, and I talked for like 5 minutes there, and the opponent was playing their scheme so much it didn't even affect anything. But yeah, it didn't seem like there's a lot of places to sit down. I don't know if there were any kind of like presentations given. Like you would kind of hope that there would be a presenter's room and people giving presentations. I'm thinking more along the lines of how an anime show would go, and it doesn't seem like it goes that way here. Seems like it's just all about playing pinball. Here you can see a pro literally has like hand guards. But yeah, you can see a lot of old men playing old tables like Twilight Zone. Here's a kid. Here's like a tall teenager, it looks like. Here's a younger looking man. There were a couple presentations, but that's kind of almost half of what anime events are, is that you have people. This guy is from TNT Amusements, Todd Tucker, Tucky, who's one of the oldest like pinball guys, and he's a kind of crazy character. They gave him like an award for the This Week in Pinball Awards. You can see people moving in arcade machines, or moving out arcade machines. It's a swap meet in the car park, apparently. Like, suffice it to say, these machines are not easy to move. So, yeah. You take a big risk moving them, damaging pinball machines and arcade machines. You take a big risk. Potentially just getting fed up with it and selling it. Here was the Doctor Who actor. So he's one of the older Doctor Who's. Yeah. What a lot of these shows turn into, certainly with the panels, is that you go and sit at a panel and have someone talk to you, not particularly because you care about what is being said, but because it is just like the only place where you can sit down and rest. What is very noticeably missing from that presentation, all those pictures, is that there was not a single stool in sight. Nor did I see any step-up steps for little kids. I imagine there are step-up stools for little kids, but I didn't. I bet there are very few stools, if any, that actually existed. So if you have a slight problem, if you're just shorter, and you sit on a stool to play pinball, which most professionals don't, in fairness, but casual fans certainly do. That is just not accommodating people. It's really an accessibility issue where pinball, it's already hard to find pinball tables and play them. It's going to be even harder if you have a shortness of height or a standing issue. I don't think I've seen anybody ever in a wheelchair being able to play a pinball table. So yeah, it looked good enough though. I'm hoping potentially next year is even bigger and better, because I'm actually considering going to it. Although with my track record, I probably won't get around to doing it. Moving on to more video game directly related things. A programmer who is working on one of the Libretto cores, the Amstrad CPC core for RetroArch, has added the retro achievements capability. So here you can see a screenshot of unofficial achievement unlocked, popping up playing a very old game. Which, it's always nice to see people trying to put new life in. It seems like this guy actually programmed the game himself, the original game, so putting achievements in it is now is a way to put new life into a thing, to continue to work on something that is fairly old and you probably can't change too much without irritating the original fan base. Oops, I could have attacked there. You can see on the Retro Achievement forum, retroachievements.org, them talking about the support being added, and you can see there were several games for the Amstrad CPC, several of which are homebrew games that they've added achievement sets for. I think there is probably quite a lot of Amstrad CPC games out there, but I'd have to double check. It feels like one of those first generation PC attempts, game console attempts. Alright, let's see if we are still logged in. Good. So we left Friday with just a ton of stuff. So here we have a game called Let's Go Nuts, which looks like a platformer collecting nuts. It actually doesn't look too bad. Let's Go Nuts 2. It's coming soon though, so I'm just gonna ignore it for now. Here we have a visual novel called Cafe Stella and the Reaper's Butterfly, which has some anime girls, and doesn't seem to have any adult content in it though, from the tags. I didn't play fast enough. So this stuff would have these games would have been from the weekend. Actually, it says adult content includes a few illustrations of veiled nudity and kissing. Characters' intersexual relationship that's not shown on screen, but acts of which are brought up in conversation. Also, every opinion character is over 18 years old. We might be seeing a case where Valve has gotten rid of like the nudity tag and sexual content tags, and on top of that, we might be seeing a case where those games are being the explicit style of those games are being disallowed on Steam. But until somebody comes out and complains, particularly somebody other than Manga Gamer, who specifically has been the only one to complain, it's hard to know what's really going on. Here we have a game on Steam called Fragments of the Mind, which is tagged as a Metroidvania puzzle RPG game. Looks like there might be something to this, so I'll give it a follow. I saw some footage of the new Kirby game, and it takes on more of a Banjo-Kazooie feel in some of the levels than I would have expected. It's not particularly a bad thing, it's just kind of weird that you would have that from behind perspective running upwards. It's not a very difficult game either, so you run into a situation where it's kind of easy, kind of slow. I hope it's better than new Super Mario Brothers on the Switch, though. I know that's a DS game, but it definitely needed to have been sped up. Like, I cannot beat these levels, frankly, playing as Mario in new Super Mario Brothers on the Switch. Like, it just does not work. I have to play as Toadette, and arguably this might just be a case that I am a really bad gamer and games have just gotten way easier. But yeah, I am kind of feeling like a lot of these Nintendo Switch games are, by new modern standards, pretty bad as far as how they play and their difficulty spikes. And you just really wouldn't expect that from a Switch game. Let's see, we just want to do 2 at the moment. Well, that did not quite work as the way I had hoped it would, but I think we'll still be fine. If I get this guy down to 6,000, I can win. Guaranteed. But it is going to take a while. So that gives him enough time to potentially buy himself some time. Next we have a game on Steam here called Epic Pirate, which feels a little too asset flippy. Which is a shame because there is a potential idea of a character like this, a female pirate running around. But then you see the actual game and she's like swimming to get these giant gold coins, or she's running on a bridge to get giant gold coins, or just walking in a field to get a giant gold coin. There's just not something happening there that feels like it should. Let's see. Let's go ahead and destroy this card. You can see how this deck is specifically designed to work with warriors and power up everything and potentially synchro summon if you have to. You can also feel how this is just like really slow. Like really, really slow. I should get some extra points by winning by effect. There we had like a full board except for one of those and a field spell. Which I question if I'd ever actually get around to that. So you get a duel victory, combat victory, no damage, over 3,000 damage, which I think this might be a new reward. Activating a spell, activating a trap, that gave me 5,000 points. I don't think there's really a hard cap, but I think it probably gets very hard to get much higher than that. This, of course, then also gives us a new card on top of a few gems and a bunch of card packs. They are definitely overvaluing these card packs that open 2 cards over other things, over gems, which is fine, but I think eventually we'll see them shift towards focusing on gems and just buying everything with gems, letting the player determine what packs they want to spend their gems on. Here we have a game called Lost Wish in the Desperate World, which looks like it might be a Metroidvania game with the little Red Riding Hood type aesthetic, kind of an anime aesthetic too. There might be something to that, certainly. Yep. Here we have a game called Knights of the Chalice 2, which looks like a very old game in so many videos that the screenshots are not even loading. $44 is really expensive, certainly. Yeah. And I just don't see anything here that would catch my attention, even if this was some super popular game. Old game being released on Steam for the first time. It's not one I recognize. Here we have a game called Tabitha's Alphabet, which looks very much like a low-effort Russian game. learn the alphabet in Ukrainian or Russian, seeming like you're playing both sides, and yet language-wise it says it only supports English. Yeah, I don't think we would be approving or suggesting anybody buy such a simplistic looking game or something that is just trying to catch people's attention due to political warfare reasons. And while I still probably am going to be somewhat cautious about putting anything that's English and Russian on the fall list, I was already pretty cautious about doing that, and I'm not feeling like there's a specific reason to passionately exclude games just because they support the Russian language alone. It's not a 100% deal breaker in my book. Let's see. Here we have a game called The Conqueror of Battles, which doesn't look like much of anything. Here we have a game called Doomed to Hell, which looks like it's a top-down twin-stick shooter roguelike. There might be something to this. Like, you just never know. Let's see, here we have a game called Quake Survivor, which looks like it's a horror game or a puzzle game where you're trapped in a subway all by yourself. I don't know why a subway would be completely empty. Honestly, it feels way more like a horror game than anything else. Yeah. It says first person horror puzzle game. And it's single player only. And these screenshots are just not showing me enough. I could certainly see a sequence where a game like that starts in that environment but then needs to kind of transition. Like a train inevitably being a transition vehicle, a transition device, it makes no sense to set your entire game around that, or the entire story around that. Okay, let's see if we can return this to the hand. Next we have a game on Steam here called Pill Baby, which seems like it is a super surreal, like trippy acid trip type game. It doesn't look that terrible though that I can just dismiss it. $13.49 English and Turkish. It's an interesting question about whether pills are particularly popular in Turkey. I think kind of not, but who knows? Compared to like smoking hashish. Here we have a game called Tomimi, which looks like it is a attempt on something closer to, I think, a Mega Man game than a Metroidvania, although it's tagged as a Metroidvania game. Kinda doesn't matter though, because the English version is not yet out. Although it does say it's coming soon, so I guess I can put this on the follow list. It's still kind of in a weird position where you'd have to reevaluate it and wait for reviews. Here we have a game called Slackline VR, which Seems like it's just a tightrope walking simulator in VR with several different asset flipped backgrounds. While that might be slightly interesting, it's not varied enough in its gameplay mechanic, and it's definitely not worth even $254 in my book. I don't think it would be worth anything. There's a game called Devastator, which looks like it's a top-down, like pixely mess of explosions. Alright. Let's see if we can do this now. I guess I should have activated that. That was stupid of me. Here we have a game on Steam called Forsake, and we will have video game news. I'm just trying to catch up on what we had left over from Friday. And I'm starting to yawn even now, so I am in a danger zone. Nothing. No, the Forsake. This looks like it's a troll game, so I think we can easily say no to that. This guy's just gonna defeat me with the fence. Alright, I guess we can activate this. And see what this does. Like this Tokoban game. Don't know if there's enough of a game here, but there might be something to this. Here we have one called Amylite, which looks like it's a frustration precision platformer, which in a lot of ways, I guess, New Super Mario Bros. Is a very attempt at a simplified frustration baby's first precision platformer game. What's weird about the New Super Mario Bros. Game is that each level has 3 big coins, and then they don't tell you what to do with any of the 3 big coins. So, like, I don't think I will actually even bother to collect all 3 of the big coins, because looking up from previous versions of the game, it seems like it just unlocks like wallpapers. There's definitely some functionality that without Nintendo Online, there's a service you can't do, both in new Pokemon Snap and New Super Mario Brothers, which really sucks. And I feel like they may have even patched in the requirement for Nintendo Online as a pay service to, like, maybe there still is a free version of Nintendo Online, but they seems like they've pushed everything to be Nintendo Online required, whereas I think some of the first generation games had online capability that didn't require Nintendo Online. But yeah, I definitely feel like I'm just gonna kind of rush through it. And there's like, even the makers of the game know that it's too difficult of a game, because if you die a few times, there's this Luigi question mark exclamation block you can hit that will just have the game automatically beat the level and let you move on. Although it doesn't mark it as actually beaten. And then there's a whole character called Nabbit that the character doesn't take any damage when he hits enemies or comes in contact with enemies, which is kind of crazy. But also that doesn't mark it as properly beaten either, so Toadette really is, if you want to try to even have a somewhat proper marking of the map as far as defeating levels, Toadette is the only character that you really could play as, with her crown power-up that turns her into Princess Peach, which it seems weird that they wouldn't just give you Princess Peach by default as a playable character, but I guess they're trying to storyline still play around the idea that Princess Peach has been kidnapped. But yeah, it's way too difficult of a game for its own good. Moving on, we have a game called Costello Shattered Mirrors, which looks like it's just a pixely Doom clone. Not really my style of game, so I think I can say no to that. Although I could see somebody finding something interesting there. Here's a late GameDeveloper.com article saying Deep Well and Good Game Jam to host an inaugural mental health game jam. Check out that article if you're interested. I definitely feel like it is a lot of nonsense. It's more nonsense than not when they start talking about mental health in video games. I think there are some instances in which it is kind of true that mental health can be improved by playing games, but it is propaganda kind of on both sides more often than not, and just pushing kind of questionable studies and questionable assumptions. There was a video put out specifically on Reddit just a few hours ago, or yesterday, where they showed a student with ADHD watching a boring math lecture on a video, and then they showed the exact same student watching the pod racing scene of Star Wars Episode 1, and surprise, surprise, he looked bored out of his mind watching the math lecture and was much more enthralled and less fidgety when watching the pod racing scene in Episode 1. Which kind of proves nothing, because inherently any diagnosis, it's hard to have particularly mental diagnoses that are handed out like candy, like ADHD. It's really hard to have a control there, where you have a student that you 100% guarantee does not have ADHD to see what a regular student would do. It's not uncommon for kids to be fidgety. It's not uncommon. It never was uncommon. The only thing that's really changed in the past 200 years is not the amount of kids being fidgety, it's the amount of beatings the teachers could hand out to fidgety kids until they were terrified and abused into not fidgeting. And the amount of students that could straight up just be pushed out of the school system completely to go work in a farm, or just run away and do something else. Yeah. So yeah, it definitely creates a just kind of pointless video that doesn't prove or show anything. Let's see if we yeah, that didn't work for us. Seems like he can activate something now. I think we're now at the fall list cleanup games from Friday. So here you have one from September of 2021. I'm going to give it more time, even though it's probably not going to be relevant. Here we have one called Puddle Knights, which was rated very positive as a turn-based like puzzle game with it's almost like a snake game where you have knights holding the dresses or holding things for the over the puddles for the queens. Kind of like a chivalry simulator in a weird way. Yeah, let's take some more damage while we're at it. Yeah, we'll put that on the wish list. Actually, I should put that on the top of the deck, shouldn't I? That card would have saved me potentially to attack this and this and then... that was stupid. Here we have a game called Sich, S-P-S-Y-C-H, which is maybe Psych. Maybe that's how you spell the word Psych. I can't remember at the moment. It's still early access from September 2021. It's a single player game. Yeah, I'll give it some more time, but it probably is abandoned. Here we have a PST primary surgical treatment simulator, which is mixed reviewed, so I'm just gonna get rid of that. One of these days we may get a good like educational or surgery simulator that isn't just a total joke like Surgeon Simulator. Here we have a puzzle game, it looks like. VR puzzle game. Does it require VR? Yes, it does. So I'll leave this on the fall list because it's VR. And we have a game called Proxy. Visually it looks fine, but seems odd that you have this kind of tall kid and this tall guy and this kid character, and that seems to be the only two. Yeah, it says Trent or Alicia. Just having such a short character in a first-person shooter or a cover-based shooter seems weird. Yeah. This seems almost like a student project, but it's not being labeled as a student project. It's free. So I think as far as I'm concerned, I would just have to say this is something you can check out, but clearly there's no relevancy here. So there's no reason to put it on the wish list. We have a game called Pros and Codes, which is a cryptography game, and I've always wanted to play this. Apparently They're also saying some of what their proceeds go to Project Gutenberg, which is always an interesting project to remember exists, as far as trying to have an online database of public open source books. And then we have a game here called Propagation VR, which requires VR. It's free and it's overwhelmingly positive. So with that, I think that cleans up what was left over from Friday, which that did take 55 minutes. And that one game did take forever, just to know I was going to lose. It definitely does benefit you to just start ending the turn if you have lost your path to victory fairly quickly. Like if it's the first, second, or third turn and you realize, oh, they've destroyed my one card and they're playing a strong strategy here, then you should just end the turn over and over again. Now, what's irritating, I will say about Yu-Gi-Oh! Is I now own all of these boards. So, is there not some kind of setting with these decks where it could just match the opponent's board? Because I don't care and I just want to see a matched board somewhere. Always. The half-split boards as a concept is not something I want to see or care about. But yeah, I'm not seeing anything like that, and it probably wouldn't be in these settings. But yeah, I could understand the game doing the split if you hadn't purchased the boards, just to irritate you and make you purchase the boards. But to not automatically match seems like a major oversight. Let's see how this goes. And there's still really no way to mute mates. So I can play my character that doesn't make any sound unless you click on it. But that doesn't stop him from playing his character. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says GTA Online is adding a $6 monthly membership scheme for PS5 and Xbox Series consoles. PlayStation will reportedly reveal its Xbox Game Pass rival as early as next week. I haven't heard anything about it so far today. EA has reportedly greenlit a decision to rename FIFA as EA Sports Football Club. Definitely moving away from FIFA license. The Amazon Game Studio boss has stepped down. The Amazon claims the executive is leaving to focus on his family. That's what they all say. Mike Frazzini. Yeah, with New World being a pretty poor launch, it kind of makes sense to fall on the sword. Plus, in general, I just don't think there's a ton of success that Amazon has had as far as getting into the video game world, regardless of whether you're talking about them acquiring Twitch or Amazon Lua, their streaming service, or New World or Lumberyard, or their servers. They're supposed to use Lumberyard. Because remember, they started off with such grand ambitions of people using Amazon Lumberyard to make games, and that with New World really failed to put out something that would show the power of something like Lumberyard. In a lot of ways, Amazon feels like it's trying to be Microsoft, but it's decades behind Microsoft. Too. They had that Lord of the Rings MMO also that was canceled. I had forgotten completely about that. The Halo TV series sets a viewership record for Paramount Plus. The show's already been renewed for a second season. These were probably scheduled announcements before it even aired. I have heard absolutely nothing about anybody actually watching the Halo TV series or feeling like there was anything special in the Halo TV series. The only slight thing I've heard is that it feels like the Halo TV series is not particularly concerned around being accurate to Halo and is just trying to make a TV series around a recognizable name. Let's see. A Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order's lightsaber arrives at Disney parks and is immediately being scalped. I'm not sure what specifically is special about the Fallen Order lightsaber. It feels like it looks different as a replica. People are selling it here for like $300, but I wouldn't be surprised if you're paying $100 anyways for that, for those replicas at Disney World. A sequel to Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has been announced in January. EA announced it, along with 2 new projects and developments and new teams within the Respawn hierarchy. A potential new EU law would force Apple to allow sideloading of apps like Fortnite, which anytime the EU goes after a big American company, there's definitely some feeling that it is just the European Union being incredibly protectionist in the way they run their government. But on the other hand, more often than not, EU's rulings benefit not only the European Union, but everyone else around the world. I would say the only real problem that the EU has done is, and this is a great example of just not understanding the outcomes of your laws, is that the GDPR requirements, where everything has to click and ask for your consent for a cookie, feels like that has become very annoying, and it really has just been used as a way of bludgeoning the end user into clicking accept without reading anything. I feel like there should be a more automated way within browsers to just straight up say, no, I'm not going to agree to these things. Yes, I will agree to these things. Let's automate the whole thing when we go to a website. The browser should be incredibly restrictive and say, no, we're going to not allow for this. We are definitely at a point where the idea of cookies are barely useful anyways. And arguably, the one thing that cookies are mostly used for, logging in and logging out, there is an argument now with browsers like Chrome that just automatically fill in login things. If that was a more automated process and there were no cookies after 24 hours or anything like that, and it just automatically logged you and logged out, if there was more of a kind of suspend and wake up state that happens server side as far as your browsing history, that might be a better way to do it. Like, every time you go to a website, you have to log in. But then, without cookies, at a certain point, you're logging in for every single page potentially. Like, session cookies should be fine. It's the ones that stay on your hard drive. But even that, I imagine, is a problem. The whole thing, though, with the cookies and the GDPR is it's really not done anything, in my opinion, to protect the privacy or the rights of the end user like it should. It's probably helped a little bit, but not much. Like, you don't feel better protected today than you did 10 years ago before the GDPR happened. But as for this rule, like this rule, forcing sideloading to allow sideloading feels like a very fair thing to do. And nobody is happy with the walled garden experience on Apple as it stands. People that want to stay within the walled garden could easily still do that if they allowed sideloading like Android does. Let's see. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says Microsoft paid $5 to $10 million to get Guardians of the Galaxy on Game Pass, and analyst claims, which is basically saying nothing at all, because analysts, particularly in the video game industry, should not be listened to at all, because there's, I think, very little information is given out that where you could actually accurately analyze anything. Whereas an analyst on a stock market exchange or something like that, something where there's more details given out, has an actual chance. Although the generally accepted accounting principles as they are, which are really just lies at this point, makes it so easy to confuse and mix costs and expenses in such a way that you could never suss out on a shareholders meeting quarterly report where the money actually went for anything. Because you really just have to say, our expenses, our income was this, our expenses were that, gross revenue is this, net revenue is that. And in a company that's doing billions upon billions of dollars worth of trading and actions, it's very easy to hide all of that. Effectively, there's almost certainly two books in every major corporation. The books that they show the internal people who have to make budgeting decisions, and then the watered down version of the books that they show to the shareholders. And it becomes much more creative writing experience than an accurate accounting experience. This is not particularly the card to use to destroy a fairly weak card. In the same way, Xbox Game Pass apparently has come out and admitted that it paid indie developers more than $2.5 billion in royalties. Again, you just have no idea where that's going, though. It could very well be a case that the massive amount of that is going to a game like Binding of Isaac, a very popular indie game, and a tiny percentage of that is going to indie games nobody's ever heard of. What I will say is interesting is there has been this history of hiding secrets in plain sight in the background. And here you have, usually Major Nelson is the one that does this, but you have an iPad here, I assume, a Nintendo Switch here, and a PlayStation here. That's not just set decoration. This is a hint that deals have been done to put at least Xbox streaming on the Nintendo Switch, on the iPad, and on the PlayStation. The most shocking of that being the PlayStation. Like, there's really no other way to see that. Because you wouldn't get... You just wouldn't get this set up this way. With the professional lighting, with the professional hair and makeup, if you are not very close to making announcements that the cloud gaming is coming. Like, that just doesn't happen. Visually, the Nintendo Switch with its red and blue doesn't even make sense. Or the black controller doesn't really make sense. If you were just setting up a visual appearance. She's also wearing an Apple Watch. So that might be a hint at something too, but in all fairness, most people who are into gadgets do wear Apple Watches. There isn't a lot of competition there. So I'm calling it here. Before the year ends, we're going to see Xbox Game Pass games on the PlayStation. If that doesn't come about, then this is a troll that is trying to eat some of the announcement, take some of the oxygen out of the room for a PlayStation, streaming service, Game Pass competitor. Moving on, Video Games Chronicle says PlayStation is tipped for a busy week of announcements. Sony's new subscription service is expected to be revealed early this week. It's supposed to say this, but they've typed it wrong. Kirby and the Forgotten Lands is the biggest UK launch in the series history. Yep. The levels are bespoke levels, which is not really what the trailer is showing you. There is a map, an overworld map, and you go from overworld map from level to level, and in each level you have usually 3 or more sections, it looks like, that are kind of wide pathways more than an open world Mario 64 experience. So it's been somewhat deceptive, I think, in what it was showing. In all fairness, Kirby is supposed to be a baby game for babies, so it's not wrong to have wider pathways instead of open worlds like Mario Odyssey. It's just weird that they advertised it that way when it really doesn't seem like it is going to be that way. I also have this fear, having played Kirby on the Game Boy and knowing how short Game Boy games are, even Link's Awakening being a particularly short game. I definitely have a fear that you're going to potentially get the Kirby game for full price and find out that it is a 15 to 20 hour game instead of a 60 hour game that you just burn through. There's like 3 collectibles, characters in each level, and I think that's kind of it. But I think people are liking it for what it is. Video Games Chronicle says hidden Elden Ring files could point to a potential bestiary, which, okay. Seems like the hype for Elden Ring has finally died down somewhat. Sony has filed a new trademark for Knack, which, okay. We would have assumed that there would have been a new Knack game eventually. It's been 5 years since Knack 2 was released in 2017, but it's not like Sony has a lot of kids games to play, and Knack is the closest thing to a kid game they do have. Clearly, if you compare Kirby, which can come out of the blue basically and catch people's attention and nostalgia, Knack is never going to do anywhere as good a job at that. It just has not put in the decades. I don't know if I've activated a spell or not. Theoretically, I should activate a spell, but just let him win. A Legends of Kingdom Rush is headed to Steam in June, which I guess this was a mobile game first. Not sure that there's really an experience here I'd want to play. Yeah, I don't know if I mentioned it, but I burned out on Magikarp Jump, and I installed Pokemon Unity and then played like one level, and then I've put it on the back burner because I just don't have time to be playing yet another mobile game. Also, I've run into a point where I'm just kind of out of space, or at least my phone is complaining about me being out of space at 64 gigs, I think, worth of internal space for apps, and I'm like, this seems sucky. And I guess that is a consideration when I buy the next phone, is just to figure out, am I going to have to jump up to 128 gigs of internal space just for apps, on top of still trying to have a micro SD slot to go up to 512 or a gigabyte or higher. Destiny Child's still doing its same old, same old. I have about 3 days until the next event starts, and this is creating a bit of a rush to hopefully max out 2 of the characters to unlock some rewards. It's not a huge loss if I don't max out the characters, but it kind of sucks. I'm just running short and desperately trying to give them as many XP boosts as I can by feeding them other characters, other childs. The childs combine with other childs, eat the other childs, whatever you want to call it, to get bigger, as it is often the case in gacha games. Yeah, this Legends of Kingdom Rush does not look like anything particularly interesting. This guy is just gonna synchronize. One of the indie developers, he created the visual novel Coffee Talk, has passed away at 32. I'm frankly surprised we didn't hear more of that, and certainly as indie development of games and releasement of games increases, as it's just a more open playing field, we will see more of that. That's Mohammed Fahmy. Let's see. if we actually know what he died of, because my first two assumptions would be he either died of COVID or complications of COVID, or he just killed himself because this visual novel Coffee Talk definitely feels like it's more of the one of the more emotional kind of hippie woke liberal games, so I wouldn't be surprised if people that make those types of games have a slightly higher chance of also being emotionally unstable. Of course, I'm probably being fairly biased and even saying that. Alright, let's see how this works. As is typical, though, the Video Games Chronicle article does not really say how he died. Apparently, they're creating a Sonic cinematic universe, says the movie producer. A third Sonic film has been confirmed, and claims Tails' solo movie is also in development too. Which, honestly, I agree with that completely. I think a cinematic universe around those characters makes way much more sense. See, I could play these and probably win next turn. Call of Duty is set to offer its first ever 2-week-long free multiplayer trailer, according to Video Games Chronicles. Check out that article if you're interested. Activision says Warzone doesn't support map rotation because of the crazy install sizes, which, okay. I also wanted to mention that DF Retro talked about the micro stuttering issue when new effects and shaders are being loaded in, being a fairly major problem and a growing problem amongst PC games and Unreal Engine 4 games in particular. Although I have specifically been playing older games like Lego games and Resident Evil 4 as an examples of things that have had that same micro stuttering issues. I'm not 100% sure that if you turned off the Windows optimizations under the advanced tab of these EXEs, maybe that would fix the micro stuttering in Tokyo Ghostwire or Ghostwire Tokyo, or I think is actually the name of the game. That might fix all or most of that. But it is kind of sad to see that this issue still seems to be popping up its ugly head. When it has no business existing. But yeah, that's annoying and definitely not something you want to hear. See if this guy will just surrender. Well, that save them some damage. Let's see, and then our final Video Games Chronicle article, at least I think for today, says Bungie has filed a lawsuit against senders of bogus Destiny DMCA strikes. Company is seeking damages for $150,000 for each fraudulent takedown notice. This is something that I think we may have to see more of to potentially even start convincing politicians that the DMCA was a mistake. But yeah, I definitely feel like if we saw people that actually owned the rights to games suing people that were claiming they owned the rights to games, instead of owners like Nintendo actively doing the DMCA strikes themselves, you could potentially shift the narrative and make some actual good, real change. But in a lot of ways, it doesn't particularly benefit Bungie other than good BR to protect their rights to their own copyright in such a way. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is specifically because they actually filed DMCA strikes and didn't use the YouTube Content ID system, which I bet is harder to convince YouTube to let you prosecute someone who makes a false claim. Let's see, Gamatsu, PS4 and PS5 saw some software update is now available. It adds open and closed parties and more. This might be fairly old stuff. Yeah, this is from 23. So I think we can pretty much assume that anything from 23 is old. 24, I think we can also fairly assume is old. I may not have talked about all these games. It'd be nice if there was a Chrome plugin, and there probably is a Chrome plugin out there. I just don't know what it is. Where you could have a page more visually marked if you visited it before. Because like a game like this, the time I have left, I think I probably did talk about since it came out March 24th, but I don't remember anything about it. I know I talked about Turbo Golf. Some of these are definitely scrolled down to lower parts, so I may have looked at them as far as games. Alterborn, third-person action shooter. Curse to Golf launches this summer. Like this one looks like it might be an interesting golf game. It's kind of like a puzzle golf game, but maybe not. Like you never know if there's really a large fandom there for golf games. Right. Here we have Demotion and Amoeba. It's definitely just getting one of a lot of fairly old cards. One more victory and we get 300 gems, and then after that point, if I was to not play anymore, I would really just be missing out on a few card packs, legendary card packs. Let's see. Duelist Mars announced for basically everything except for the Switch. Sequel to Deliver Us the Moon. Let's see. Justice Sucks has a debut trailer. It is a action game. You really don't have time to watch announcement trailers or debut trailers. I watched this Netflix show called Guardians of Justice, which is basically just a parody on Batman and maybe Injustice storyline, sort of the Brother Eye storyline. Things that are definitely recognizable if you are even slightly familiar with the DC comic universe and aren't just looking at it solely through Batman movies. But it was very weird in that it moved at an awkward pace. It had very weird mixed media. Sometimes you would get a claymation depictions, something very similar to the celebrity wrestling or celebrity boxing, whatever it was called, on MTV decades previous. And sometimes you would just get like full-on animations or CGI, and like each one of those segments clearly would have taken more time. So the only thing that would have made sense is if they were shooting it in live action first and then they were delayed because of a pandemic or something, and then decided they had the time otherwise to instead make scenes in claymation or animation. But it really doesn't make sense. It almost feels like it was at one point going to only be claymation, or only going to be animation, and then that fell apart. Like that would kind of make sense too. But the story does not really say anything new or say anything particularly well. It comes off as something that a first year high school student would write, just blatantly stealing concepts. What I think maybe had happened there is I think a lot of the actors playing superheroes were actually either masked Mexican wrestlers or just not WWE but second string, third string wrestlers. And I could kind of see the idea there. If you were something below even AEW and you wanted to make a TV series using your wrestlers who can't really act, but you wanted to show off like action moves, there's almost an idea around that. I almost felt like it was some kind of Bollywood style series, or maybe a Mexican or Central American style series, but it seems like it was made for English first and foremost. So yeah, very weird show. I'm not sure you'd 100% recommend watching it. You definitely wouldn't want to pay a lot of attention to it. But yeah, I was reminded of that since this Justice Sucks debut trailer came out, which I don't think I even sat through and watched. If I did, I forgot it already. A adventure RPG, The Outbound Ghost, launches in 2022 for PS5, PS4, Xbox Series, Xbox One, Switch, and PC. Which feels like it might have a Paper Mario type experience to it. Which, yeah, I definitely want to see more people rip off Nintendo games and do better on it. I wish that kind of happened the year after Paper Mario came out, though. Like, there was such a reverence back in the day for Nintendo, and there wasn't really that much competition, that Nintendo could make a Paper Mario game or Mario RPG game and just not do anything with it for the next 5 to 10 years, and still there would be nobody trying to compete against that. Whereas in modern day, almost certainly somebody should be competing against that. If anything, it's kind of a sad statement on the idea of capitalism and competition in video games in particular, but just in general, is that, yeah, you can get lucky and make a product and nobody will compete against it and nobody will try to make a cheaper version or clone of it. And a lot of that comes down to copyright laws protecting video games way more than other laws protect other products. Like Coca-Cola has not been successful in really stopping store brand Sam Goody style Coca-Cola ripoffs from being made. I don't know if they've even tried to pass any kind of law around that or get any kind of ruling around that that would stop stores from doing something like Coca-Cola ripoffs. Let's see. Moving on, Forever Skies has an extended gameplay trailer and screenshots, which I believe Forever Skies is going to be potentially a competitor to Starlink and the Bethesda game in the space. But it could also be anything too. It could be big, it could be small. Vampire the Masquerade Swan Song has an RPG trailer. I feel like I looked at this, so I'm just gonna skip this. Here we have a game called The Cub. Classic inspired platformer announced for basically everything. Yeah. In a lot of ways, this is probably a better idea around making something like Limbo instead of doing the whole black and white colored silhouette thing. It's a human with an oxygen kind of mask. It's kind of pointless to watch the trailers when they're blurred anyways. It's always difficult to have the safety to teach someone that they can jump the safety in some situations when obviously they can't always jump the safety, unless this is a game where there's always water or something that saves you from a fall. I wouldn't be surprised if that's like the very beginning of the game where he jumps into the water and then it never happens in the game again. Looks like there's some kind of robots or something shooting after him. Then this digital visual game Lego Brick Tales was announced. I definitely wanted to see this and did not get around to seeing this. You can see in this screenshot it is seemingly going to be more focused around building actual things with Legos. Hopefully they will do it better than Lego Worlds. I think in a lot of ways this will be story sections and very small areas, so not trying to make a Minecraft type clone, if I was to guess. What's also interesting here is I don't believe this is TT Games. Nope, Thunderful and Clockstone Studio, which, yeah, there needed to be at least a couple of other companies making Lego games. So it seems like there's a collectible. It seems like there's minifigs that are going to talk to you in full text, whereas Lego Worlds not so good at that. really. Seems like you're actually going to put things together. I don't know how you put things together. Maybe it's just going to be a case of clicking the pieces, and then the piece, if you click the right piece, it goes into place in the right order. So it might be something as simple as just click, 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 if you don't know which piece is the next piece. Or it might be click and drag and actually put it in the right place, which would be kind of a nightmare. I think that's where Lego Worlds fell apart. Here you can see there's a lot of different sections they're promising, but in reality, they're really only showing about 7 worlds. I wouldn't be surprised if it really is something closer to a DLC scenario on mobile games, mobile phones, or even consoles, where you start with like 6 worlds and then have to buy more and buy more and buy more as they add more content. Soul Hackers 2 has the Arrow trailer if you want to check that out. Still trying to burn through this fairly quickly as far as all the news. Let's start looking at some of the games coming out on Steam. Little Robo Climber, looks like nothing. Square is a Flappy Bird clone. Hoop Clicker is obviously just a joke clicker game. Reflex, casual puzzle game. Says looks like it's just a mirror game. Yeah, I don't think we would say anything for Reflex. It just looks like a mirror game. So no to that. VR Mini World Roller Coaster feels like it is more of a troll game. Here you have a lady in a bikini and a bra in a bathtub, which I think that would be really ridiculous if any female actually got in a bathtub in a bra. You would ruin your bra. So that really just does not make sense. Let's see if we can get a warrior character on the field. Next we have a game called Amnesiac Adventurer, which does not look like much of anything. Here we have a hidden object game, which doesn't look like anything special, at least. We have a sandbox game called YAG, which 3D virtual tabletop experience. But I'd like to see what people think about this, so I'm going to put this on the follow list. In reality, though, I think I'll probably say no to it. As far as content, seems like the special DLC content is all free too. It's online PvP only, so it might not have a great system to just build a world before your players actually start playing it. to do some kind of online Dungeons and Dragons style experience. Let's see, we have Chico's Family Friendly Circus, which looks like a kind of low effort horror point and click game. I don't know if I'd really even call it point and click, so no to that. Blue Jade Joyride looks like it's just an Asteroids clone. Still getting quite a lot of Asteroids clones out there. Here we have something called Our Elusive Suffering, which is already mixed. It's just emojis. A cryptic horror game. Nothing will be explained, nothing will be given, everything will be figured out eventually. Well, this is tempting certainly, but it seems like people are not particularly happy with it. But I'm going to put it on the fall list anyways. But yeah. Definitely feels like that could be a game that just doesn't explain anything and is cryptic as a way of hiding the fact that there's not a lot of content there. Well, I have to say, I am a little shocked that somebody hasn't made this game already. Here we have a player versus player sexual content battle royale game called Fall Girls instead of Fall Guys. And you got the flat anime girls as screenshots, and then the actual game is 3D models of bikini-clad girls running from point A to point B, which, you know, it ain't a bad thought. It really is not a bad thought. It is fairly late. It's being compared to Ben and Ed, so Ben and Ed I found was particularly difficult. But you can see it's just a lot of platforming and not getting knocked off. The game may contain general sexual content, it says, so I imagine there is not actually any real content in there. When you're saying may, that should be not allowed, honestly. You should either say it does or does not as a descriptor. I'm gonna do this. There more than likely isn't really a game there. And that game came out on the 26th, so that still would be over the weekend as far as adult content games. Here we have a game called Conductor Creative Joy Engine, which just looks like a visualization software of no real interest. I'm not really talking about audio, but I should mention that the Rodecaster has announced a headphone that they are selling, which I believe is Rodecaster's first headphone. Rodecaster makes a pretty nice standalone soundboard that you can plug into a computer to record things, although you don't have to plug it in the computer to record audio. And they've made some other accessories around audio devices. So moving into the headphone market is not crazy for them. And what's really nice about it, on top of having switchable plugs where you can put the cord on the left or the right headphone, they've made specific notches. So instead of it just being a bit of an oval or just a pure circle to go around the ear, because they're over the ear headphones, they've put a little notch in it to give you even more space. So they're claiming it is like the most comfortable headphones ever, which is something you kind of need, because if you don't have that, then what you end up doing is spending a lot of time in pain or just slight discomfort as you're working with audio in one way or the other. I use Audio Technica M50s, and as long as that works, I'm not really in the market to replace the headphones. But like, there is definitely some features on this Rodecaster headphones that makes it seem like it's very nice, and potentially it is. Potentially it could be very expensive. So that's another concern. Let's see. Moving on, we have Medusa the Origin, Lost in Dream of the Deep, which just looks like it's a visual novel, maybe a Chinese visual novel. Yep, free. I haven't seen a ton of Chinese-only games. World of Epica looks like nothing of interest. Elite School Roof Club looks like a poorly animated visual novel. By the way, I suppose it is worth mentioning that a lot of what's shown in Japanese anime or visual novels doesn't actually happen in Japanese schools. You're like totally not allowed to get on the roof and hang out on the roof and things like that. And yeah, you're totally not allowed to have like ponytails or wild hair colors or disheveled clothing or different outfits. It is night and day difference, frankly, from what is shown in anime versus what really happens, and it really just goes to show that what is often shown in animes and that happens in high schools or colleges is a fantasy, as most of anime is a fantasy of what the creators would have wanted to have been allowed, or not what really is allowed. Let's see, here we have a game called Mispedaling Simulator, which just looks like a low effort asset flip car crashing game, for lack of a better term. Here we have a game called Love and Guillotines, which looks like it's a dating sim during the French Revolution. Free to play, English only. I guess it's free to play, so I'd just say check it out if you're interested. Personally, I'm not seeing enough of a reason to play this specific game. The animation, if it was a little bit better, if it had voice acting, it says it has full audio, but I don't really believe that. If it was more of a product that was really something that you'd have to pay money for, I'd consider it. But I really do devalue the free-to-play games quite a bit, and just don't want to put my time into something that's free-to-play most of the time. First-person shooter Arena Online here is such a generic title that we can dismiss it immediately. Also, Image Zombie looks like it is a mobile helicopter shooting at zombies. Maybe? It's not visually polished enough, though. Like, there is room, certainly, for this idea. I wonder if mobile helicopter is the wrong phrase. Maybe it's military helicopter. Make a little bit more sense. But yeah, the problem with shooting something in a helicopter is that your visuals are going to be so zoomed out that you're not going to be able to see it. It would probably make more sense to play a military helicopter shooter game against giant kaiju type creatures where they're giant and big in comparison. Here we have Game Dev Story with mixed reviews, which I feel like this game had already come out, or something very similar to this had already come out. Regardless, there's no reason to put down the fall list. And then you have basically the same game, other than this is Hot Springs Simulator. Yeah, I don't think that's worth $10.80. Like, this is kind of the thing you might play on a mobile phone for free. And then you have same publisher and developer putting out basically the same game multiple times. Dungeon Village. And then Dreamhouse DX. Same developer. Like, just flooding Steam. Even if these were games that were mobile games first and wanted to bring them to Steam, it would make a lot of sense to pick your best-selling one and put it out first and establish yourself. Wait a week and then put out the next game. Station Manager. Well, geez, if I was gonna know, I could have burnt through several games in a row. That would have helped me quite a bit. This is another great example where I should just end the turn. Just end the turn, let him win. Save myself the frustration. Like, maybe once or twice I've seen somebody concede or decide to do something else. Am I going to be able to attach this? Okay, so you attach that card to that. That didn't help anything. Let's see. RPG Maker Unite details full HD resolution support, revamped user interface, and sample characters. So, yeah, that's definitely something that I would like to. I don't even know what I'm saying there. I was turning up the volume in my headphones, actually. And boy, do I sound better now. But yeah, I probably am just not leaning forward and talking into the mic as much. As far as RPG Maker Unite, I couldn't care less about it. I couldn't care less about any RPG Maker software because it just is not a good thing for the industry. Nexton's 30th anniversary project, Countdog website, has launched a remake of one Kagayaku Kitsu A. This is not a visual novel I recognize and doesn't feel like it's been released in the West under any other different name. This seems like this game led the Fate series creator to writing video games, and Fate series is much more around visual novel stories to start, and then eventually became its own mega series of different animes, movies, and everything. Gamatsu says the Lego Star Wars The Skywalker Saga Darkness is Rising trailer is available to watch. Although, I don't know if it really is necessary to try and get more hyped around this Lego Star Wars game. There was one thing that they were doing on Twitter where they were showing these kind of very small circular worlds as a map menu. And it looked a lot like Lego Worlds. So hopefully they're just reusing that content and that there isn't some attempt to have like a Lego Worlds interface for the Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga, which I guess at this point the Skywalker Saga includes all 9 of the movies. I would assume that that is what they would describe as the Skywalker Saga, even though it is revealed that movie 7, 8, and 9 really don't have much to do with the Skywalkers at all. And they're compared to, say, the world map that you use in the Lego Marvel Superheroes games, where it is just a flat 2D images circling around the globe. Having more of a action and Lego looking map interface is a step in the right direction. It's a small step in the right direction, but it's a step in the right direction nonetheless. I don't know if there's a way to do anything here. Whenever anybody plays this card, you're just kind of stuck with them. Because you can't attack him because he does damage back to you, I think. Unless I'm thinking of a different card. Could be this one. Yeah. Guess we'll just set this and end the turn. Moving on, Gamatsu says Kowloon High School Chronicle for PS4 is coming to North America on March 26th. This is that visual novel with some interesting looking characters, but I'm not sure how popular it really will be, nor am I really sure as to what the actual game is. Her story is. Which, in all fairness, that's kind of true for most visual novels. Let's see if we can do something now. Warrior, warrior, warrior. Gamatsu has the same article. GTA Plus subscription service announced for the PS5 and Xbox Series. Bloomberg says Sony Interactive Entertainment is going to announce a new subscription service as early as next week. We've already talked about that. Dusk Diver 2 for PS5, PS4, and Switch is coming to the West in the summer. What is Dusk Diver? Well, the video is private. It's a beat-em-up game, apparently. Shana, Rising Flower of Genpai, launches June 28th in North America and July 1st in Europe. This feels like this could be a visual novel. Yep, it's a young maid Otome visual novel. Again, video is private. Right. Attack. Here. Okay. Let's see how this works. Let's see, a game called Quantum Error has a story teaser trailer. This is from Team Kill Media. You need to play some regular ranked too. It looks weird, like a Death Stranding game done by maybe more of a Western game. It could also be fairly similar to something like Prey. I could definitely see the idea of Prey catching people's attention and people trying to do similar experiences. Sky Children of Light animation project has been announced, plus a handful of other Sky updates. So I guess the question is, Sky Children of Light even a game that came out yet, or is this all coming out at the same time? There's several different things being talked about here. Let's see. We look at this journey so far video, even though it's blurred out. Let's see what. Yeah, it definitely feels like this could be one of those games that has not actually been released yet. Or it just came out and I forgot it completely. Sadly, this does mean we won't get to the 10,000 today, although I may play off screen some. And let's see how many things that gets us. Solo mode 3 times needs to be played, although you can kind of play solo mode and just surrender and it counts. Ranked mode needs to be played. Activating a trap card in ranked mode needs to happen. I have only 2 days left on that, so that one's particular. Seems like we have only 2 days on any of them. I feel like these lasted longer before. Are they getting shorter? Did win 2 out of 10 exhibition duels, and does seem like we will be able to get this. They are being way more generous now, I have to say. Like, just really way more generous. with the currency compared to the previous festival. We have won a new title as far as a secret title. I'm not sure how many more of those really exist though. And I guess that just got me up to 9639 because I'm not having to get any gift boxes. Let's just play a little ranked. Well, actually, let's see, let's click here. Edit here. We have a whole bunch of icons, although most of these are fairly unrecognizable, so I kind of just stick with that same icon. We have icon frame 1, 2, 3, 4 now. I have to assume that platinum gives you icon frame 0. We now have show off. As I guess show off probably is the new one. We have all kinds of mates that I'll just never want to use. Yeah, we could preview this one. Yeah, we could switch to the dartboard maybe. Then you can't even really buy monster art, so. What that's not getting you to, though, as far as your deck. So I'm playing this deck. Then you have to come to change accessories. And you have several different card cases that I don't think I can buy any of these either. And then several different card backs, which, yeah, I don't see a reason to change any of these. And you can't just say play the current background that your opponent's playing. You have to pick, which arguably Forest is then the one to pick. I'm not sure where I got these field parts from. Maybe these were part of the way that the things were set. You could do something like this, but you're probably better off actually just going with no image. Yeah, there's still a lot of stuff here that is not particularly useful. You're going to engage with it once and then forget it even exists on Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. There's still a lot of growing that needs to happen as far as deck editing and just improvements. Moving on, Sword Art Online Variant Showdown has been announced for iOS and Android. It's a 10th anniversary action game. I think for like animes, like Sword Art Online, you very possibly, I'm not going to show this because it's too high of a chance of getting content ID claimed. Like, you're very possibly your best move is to simply have something like the Pokemon TV app and just have people re-airing the first season of Sword Art Online, first, second season. Like, you don't even have to go particularly far into it. I will say, looking at this trailer, they are focusing on Asuna, the lady waifu, and the sniper girl from Fatal Bullet as main characters, with Kirito being the main male protagonist character. They are not focusing on the stepsister / sister character in the second or third season when they went to the Fairy Land MMO, which I don't think that played particularly well as far as in the West, nor did I think it particularly played well even in the East. But no real telling as far as that teaser trailer as to what the game actually would be. DNF Duel has a second PS4 and PS5 open beta test set for April 1st to April 4th. I did see that one of the YouTubers I followed's channel apparently got hacked. I thought for a second it was like, oh, is this an April Fool's Day thing that they're putting out a video as a April Fool's Day joke? But then I looked at the date and I'm like, oh no, it's not April Fool's Day yet, so no, this person has just been hacked. And like, he was just a Minecraft streamer that hasn't done anything in like 10 months. All of a sudden putting up videos around cryptocurrency. Moving on, this week's Japanese game releases: MLB The Show, Burisha, Shana Senki, Ichiju no Kaze, and more. Let's see. Hokago Cinderella, Kiss Trilogy, also, and then a whole bunch of digital games. Let's see, Megaton Musashi, free update volume 4, New Shadow is now available. Which, I guess that's a JRPG game? Gundam Evolution, Gundam Exia, and Marasai. Marasai? I guess Marasai. UC trailer. Showing off some Gundam characters. What's funny here is I thought there would have been a lot more news, particularly starting late today, but there really isn't. So cutting yourself short on a Friday and leaving things for Monday has always felt like something you could do. Should have put this on the field, I think. Yeah. This was on the field. I could have chosen to destroy one, and then still really wouldn't have done anything for me. I just played poorly in picking the wrong thing to bring up. If I brought this guy up, I could potentially have tried to kill all these, but since these are Toon World characters, it is also very possible that that wouldn't have worked also. A game called Cathedrals coming to PS4 on April 12th, according to Gamatsu. Sons of the Forest has been delayed to October, which apparently is a first-person survival horror sequel to The Forest. So they kind of just announced that game and they're already delaying it. An RPG called One Piece Odyssey has been announced for PS5, Xbox Series, PS4, and PC. In a lot of ways, I wonder if the previous RPG games allowed them to have these 3D models and the gameplay mechanics, the beginnings of developing that, and that this might be the good one. I wouldn't hold my breath though for Bandai Namco to actually make a good One Piece game, considering there was a RPG One Piece game released just a few years ago that was pretty awful and then fairly quickly taken off for sale. I will also say, despite One Piece being one of the most popular animes ever, it never has caught my attention, and I think it is because the animation style of the characters is just too out there. As far as characters, or you look at like this character and this character, they look too similar, and then the two main female characters seem to definitely be with a fairly figure-8 hourglass style, big hips, tiny waist, big bust, not a lot of variety there. And then when you get into like the secondary characters of One Piece, it only gets like crazier and wilder. Yeah, I just don't know if there's a Dragon Quest-esque experience you can have with the One Piece characters. And it's always funny how Gamatsu zooms in their photos and their photo mode, so you end up looking at the exact center of a larger picture, and which tends to be the crotchal area of character. Is like a great example of a secondary character in One Piece, just really, really wild looking. I think I need to play a few more games ranked. And then I have to preface this with a finally, Postal 4 No Regrets launches April 20th. It's been in early access for 2.5 years, and I wouldn't be surprised if it leaves early access with nothing being added or nothing being changed. In general, I really have to question whether any of the Postal series should be played. It has some small relevancy, but I don't know if it has maintained that relevancy in modern days, and it's really just gained all of its attention via controversy, and so there may not be a good reason to actually play those games. Back to games that came out on Steam this past weekend. There's something here called Lone Funkus, which is an early access Metroidvania. I'll give it a follow, give it a chance. It doesn't look particularly amazing. Here we have a 1001 Jigsaw Wild Animals, which I won't give a chance to. Here we have a game called Tales of Yore, which just looks like an RPG game of no real interest, even though it says it's an MMO, which I find that even more confusing. Here we have a game called The Abyss Has Walls, which looks like it's a backrooms, low effort game. Now comparing it to Resident Evil 4. Yeah, no to that. Okay. There's literally nothing I can do here. You do this, you potentially bring this onto the field, sacrificing this, which is insane. You put that in defense position, not attack position. You kill one of those, then do that, 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 and that. And just hope that scares the player. Like, that's the only thing you can hope for. Is that it just scares them into surrendering. Otherwise, you've lost. Here we have a game on Steam called Lupa, which seems like you play as a dog. I always want one of these to be good, but they never are. Put it on the fall list. We have to live in hope, despite the reality of the situation. Here we have a game called Seashell, which... It's an interesting idea. A seashell collecting game. $3.99 isn't asking for a lot. It's kind of like a clicker thing. I'm going to give it a follow and see if people actually find something interesting in that. Like, collecting seashells is probably something, unless you go to the beach a lot, you would only do at most once in your life. So it might be an interesting experience there. I could even see it having kind of Pokemon Snap vibes in that finding a high quality seashell might get you a higher score and a higher grade. Yeah, I watched a speed run, and any percent speed run of the original Pokemon Snap compared to new Pokemon Snap, and boy, is there a big difference in just how you get scored and how long it takes you to unlock features and just the visuals in general. My nostalgic memory makes me think the original Pokemon Snap looked great, but no, it really doesn't. It doesn't look good at all. It's kind of weird they also have Professor Oak as the main professor in the original Pokemon Snap. So it would be fairly hard, I think, to recreate the original Pokemon Snap and new Pokemon Snap. You probably have most, if not all, of the same Pokemon, so you could remake those tracks and recreate everything. I just don't know if there's a real reason to do that. The tracks are better in new Pokemon Snap, and the amount of Pokemon and the selection of Pokemon. There's about, I think, 200 Pokemon in new Pokemon Snap, which there's probably close to 300 or 400 Pokemon in total at the moment. So they picked a selection of fairly distinct and interesting ones. Like, I don't think you're gonna see like a Diglett and a Dugtrio in new Pokemon Snap. If you do see them, you're gonna see them very briefly. Or like some of the bird characters that look exactly like some of the other bird characters. Like, you're not gonna see a ton of that. Have more distinct things. And there's a lot of Pokemon that are just like, this is the new evolved form, or this is the slightly better form of the second pass on animating something like that. Okay. Let's do this. We're gonna special summon this. Discarding this. Face up attack position. We're going to destroy a card on the field. Like that. And go. So I probably wrecked this pendulum summoning concept that he was setting up for. Here we have a game called Alien Extractor. Also, apparently a SimFest is happening. I think there's a JRPG sale that either happened or was happening. Alien Extractor here does not particularly feel like much of a game. Kind of feels like it's a Five Nights at Freddy's type game with less spookiness to it in VR. I'm gonna say no to that. Here we have Barabbas 2, or Barbarius? It's not Barabbas, it's Barbarius 2 Tavern Wars, which is just one of these cook serve delicious clones. So obviously no to that. So he's still playing. Here we have a game called Wigmud, which just looks like an RPG. Doesn't look terrible though, so I'm gonna give it a follow and consider it later. Yeah, we have a game called Lily Monster, which I think is too much of an asset flip dungeon crawler for its own good, for it to be of any interest. Visuals don't really look good. So I'm gonna say no to that. Here we have a game called Lofty Quest, which has this kind of isometric pixely visuals to it. They're calling them 3D dioramas. I guess that is a fair description too of the interface. Hidden object game in 3D dioramas that don't look that good. I think we have to say no to that. We've seen some other games try to do similar things better. Here we have a game called Fluffy Mill, which looks like kinda nothing. Looks like it's a box pushing Sokoban game. Here we have a game called Drunk Night, which looks like a top-down hack and slash of no interest. And often being compared to the wrong things, like the best of the best. Which I guess at a certain level, if that is their goal, is just to point players to the best game that has the same tags, the comparison there might make sense, but that's not really what the goal should be. The goal should be to say, hey, here's some games you've played, or here's similar games that are also of the same price point or the same amount of reviews or sales. Using more metrics like that to make a better apples to apples comparison. This Rover Builder doesn't look like anything that would interest me, although it might interest other people. We have a game called Traction Control, which looks like it's a physics car game. I'll give it a chance, but more than likely it would be a no. It's also early access. Here we have a tower defense VR game called Now There Be Goblins. Which for a VR game, it doesn't look terrible, so I'm going to put it on the fault list also. This guy is still taking his turn. Here we have a game called The One Who Pulls Out the Sword Will Be Crowned King. That seems to be like the only thing about the game is that you literally just drag the sword up. Unfortunately, this is overwhelmingly positive, and I assume that's because it's free. Each time someone else online pulls it out, the sword gets longer and heavier, and the more you have to wait, the harder it will be. Yeah, so seems to be heavily related to who got there first is why they got the positive reviews. I also wouldn't be surprised if even 2 months into it, trying to play the game is going to be a nightmare scenario, because you might have to sit there and try forever and never have a chance of actually succeeding. Here we have a game called For the Warp, which looks like it's a card-based positional RPG game. I don't like the pixely graphics here quite enough. There might have been an idea here that would have caught my attention though. It's $9.74 English only, but I'm just gonna say no to it. Next we have Nightmare Reaper, which looks like it's a Quake clone, Duke Nukem clone, Doom clone. Here you have a map of like Super Mario Brothers or something similar being played as part of the menu system, I think, or as a mini game. 21-24 English only. What's interesting here is it does seem like you have one of the few female protagonists in the field of Doom clones. Like you just don't really have a lot of that. Like, I like this animation certainly, but the actual game doesn't look that good. Clearly this zombie killer girl is enjoying the idea of killing zombies, or killing things in general. Yeah, if you just showed me this animation, that would have caught my attention. But then you show me the actual game, and it's Duke Nukem. I guess maybe the idea is, hey, what if you made a Duke Nukem game, but it was a female protagonist? Interesting idea, certainly. And I guess at some point I will want to play a Duke Nukem game. Our connection failed, so we got a free victory there. Is that because I think my connection failed? Not really. Even if it was my connection that's failing, I wish that would happen more often, not less. The adult blocking second Wi-Fi setup that I set up, I haven't done anything with, but I did want to just like connect to it and do a port scan, device scan, just to see how much is actually getting blocked. If things like universal plug and play from one network is actually making it to the other network. At some levels you kind of would like that to be the case. But on other cases, just depending, you might want something like a universal plug and play DLNA server to serve a kids separate network, different content, and have a different server for kids content versus parents content, because there aren't any user profiles or passwords in DLNA. The whole service needs a new open source replacement. But yeah, I'm not sure there ever will be a new open source replacement for it. I know Roku just updated their operating system in their cell phone app to specifically let you just stream music and photos and videos from your own your phone to a Roku TV or streaming device, kind of eliminating some of the functionality of having a separate DLNA server, although it really is a different use case, really. Like, there's a big difference between streaming something from your phone and then having your phone have to kind of do some processing there, and then having a separate server that it could connect to, taking away the processing. They're taking care of that processing somewhere else. But yeah, I do want to hop in there and just make sure what I set up actually works, because I only spent one day working on it and I was half asleep the whole time I was working on it too, which ironically makes an argument that there probably is a level where I could be insomnia idled enough that I could work on something and not feel the frustration so much and yet still kind of do good work. Although plenty of truckers think that's the case, where they can be underslept and then they drive better when they're sleepy, and that's not true. And I'm sure there's plenty of drivers out there that think they drive better when they're drunk, then that's not true. So I wouldn't be surprised if I actually made all kinds of mistakes and just wasn't recognizing it. Moving on, we have about 4 more games that came out on Steam. Solitaire Beach Season 2 here. Just a standard solitaire video game, solitaire ones. Here we have something called the Testing Chamber, which doesn't look like anything of interest. So no to that. Here we have Alchemist Arena, which I don't think there's enough in these screenshots to make me want to play this game either. We may just end slightly early today. Okay. So we're gonna do this, 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 and then this. Okay. And let's see how this works for us. Probably not particularly well. And then we have a game on Steam here called Eason, E-A-S-O-N, which very well may be just an acid flip horror game, or might have some actual gameplay in it, so I kind of have to put it on the follow list and see what other people say. GameDeveloper.com says Polyphony is now sorry for tampering with Gran Turismo 7's in-game economy. I'm sure they're not really sorry. They have the obituary for the Coffee Talk creator and writer Mohammed Fahmy. Let's see. Again, it seems like there's very little about how he died. The Oregon Trailer American Settler is apparently a game. Let's see which game, which am I going to discard? That one? Apparently, the Oregon Trail American Settler is a mobile game. And doesn't feel particularly like the Oregon Trail, but doesn't feel incredibly off from that. Moving on, GameDeveloper.com says Valve wants Steam Deck owners to help assess its compatibility ratings. The company has introduced a new opt-in feedback feature to gather information about verified titles. They really need that, but this is the beginning of the crack in the armor or the sheep's clothing, frankly, of Valve. Like verifying a bunch of games and then probably trying to automate verification. Now they're going from trying to automate it to trying to pass the buck and have the actual players. I definitely heard stories of games being labeled as verified as working and then it not really working that well. Or not working that well and later on at the end of the game. We already talked about the Amazon Games boss Mike Frazzini stepping down. And then Media Molecules celebrates another year of Dreams with the 3rd annual Impy Awards. Dreams, I believe, was that software that I don't think ever actually went anywhere. I guess they're still pretending like it's in development or it's going to potentially succeed. But yeah, I don't think Dreams ever succeeded in being something that catch people's attention. The Humble Charity Stand with Ukraine bundle has raised over $20 million. I imagine we'll get that number reported multiple times. And then we had already talked about Bungie slamming YouTube's policy and the suit against fake Destiny DMCA filers. I don't know specifically They did it on YouTube, and clearly YouTube should change its DMCA policies. This would be an amazingly great thing if it turned out that YouTube had some kind of legal requirement added to it, or changed the way they process DMCA filings, where they had to actually verify that the person who is filing it require people to send in scans of a individual's driver's license or incorporation papers or something that really verified the people are who they say they are. Like a tax ID. If you had to submit a tax ID to prove who you are, that's probably not that hard to get that information either, but I think individual scans of ID cards would be the best thing you could possibly do. Is to, before they even begin the process of DMCA form, they require people on that side of the process to give all kinds of addresses, names, phone numbers, contacts, because that is the kind of doxing information that YouTube has always required that people who are getting these DMCA claims or content ID claims to fill out, they are literally handing that information over to the people making the claims. So if you're going to even start to fight a DMCA claim, a false DMCA claim, you have to immediately get a lawyer and have the address and get the lawyer to let you use his address and as a contact to file any DMCA counter notice. Or at the very least you need a P.O. box, so you're not giving out what is probably a home address for most YouTubers to random people who are very possibly stalking, attempting to stalk you. Uh, the level of harassment that you open up yourself up to by filing a counter notice, legal or otherwise, is just way too high. Whereas people making the DMCA claims in the first place are completely pain-free in their claims and their filings. But I don't want to get into too big of a rant about that. Here we have some fall list cleanup. Here we have Puzzle Quest 3 still in early access, mostly negative here, which is funny because you'd think Puzzle Quest would have been like better received, but for some reason Puzzle Quest 3 is not well received. Yeah, so I'm gonna leave this on the follow until it either is another year or until Puzzle Quest 3 comes out of early access. Then I'll probably remove it. We have a 2048 game that doesn't look like a 2048 game, where you are, I believe, dragging and dropping buildings to upgrade them. If that's not what it is, then it's maybe closer to a Carcassonne game. Well, this one's going to be a tough one though. It is 91% positive. It's 23 reviews. I think I'm going to make an exception and put this one on the wish list. Push the box here. Needs more time. Perfect Apocalypse Purgatory Forever as a visual novel. It's out of early access. It's rated very positively. That can go to the wish list. Perfect Apocalypse being another visual novel, so you run into this situation now where there's 3 different games under the Perfect Apocalypse series. Purgo box here looks very weird. Does this actually support English? It says it does. 3 hours or more. Kind of bad animation. Well, it's free, so I can put it on the wish list and get it off the follow list because of that. Since it's free to play with a $20 soundtrack. I would be fairly desperate for some horror games. I don't even know if I'm going to do a horror month this year. I don't even know if I'm going to have videos scheduled in the next couple of weeks. That's the thing I really needed to do. Purgatory Overkill here has only 2 reviews. I don't think this is particularly relevant. And it requires VR too. So I'm going to say no to that. For is mini games. They're saying it's actually better than WarioWare. And since WarioWare is not a game that would come out on Steam, I'm going to put that on the wish list. Pure Bowling VR. I guess I'll leave this until I find a good bowling VR game. This doesn't look terrible. It's just not reviewing particularly well. Let's see. Pippi. It's 100% positive. It has 19 reviews. It's early access, so I'll leave it alone. It's probably approaching the point where I should just abandon it and remove it from the follow list, but I'll give it more chance. And then Paparazzi is probably a Pokemon Snap type game, photography game. It's rated very positively. Like, it is really surprising how many features they were able to sneak in, and they kind of do a bad job of even telling you about them as far as things you really would need in new Pokemon Snap, as far as just having photo filters like you would in any photo app, having sharing functionality, having the ability to crop and edit photos after the fact, add stickers and stamps and things like that, add actual visual filters. All of that is in new Pokemon Snap, but then also fairly unmentioned. Alright. We didn't get a win in ranked duel. I feel like I may very well need to just play this off screen today. Because there's definitely some weirdness in having 2 days left for doing solo modes. Yeah. We should experiment here. So, yeah. Still didn't activate a trap card in ranked duel, and then didn't win a ranked duel, and then solo mode 3 times. Let's do a bit of an experiment here. Go to solo mode. I'm not sure I even showed it, but I am one more deck ahead now. So this was a Toon Kingdom challenge. So I'm not even sure I showed a game doing that, which is fine, because we can show that off later. So my understanding is I think I can just surrender now on solo mode, and then go back up here and see if that counts. I guess it doesn't. So I am gonna have to legitimately duel in solo mode. Okay. Good to know. I thought there was a bit of a cheat there, but obviously not so much. And there's only like 22 new tweets from when I started streaming, so it's not going to be a ton of new news for me to scroll through. Yeah. Not Nikola Tesla. The guy who runs Tesla has been talking about potentially starting a new Twitter. I wouldn't take anything he says too seriously until he actually does something. And even then, I'd only take it seriously if he actually accomplishes something there. Arguably, there is room for a Twitter competitor, but I don't know if it is a direct Twitter competitor as much as really it should be something closer to a Facebook, Instagram competitor, not Twitter. The general idea of Twitter really does not make a lot of sense in modern day. Just being limited to 140 characters, now 280 characters, or not really having a video aspect or any real promotion of tweets or any suggestion of tweets or anything like that. So yeah, I would not use Twitter as the marker of success. The only thing it succeeded in was being in the right place at the right time when a lot of celebrities wanted to get away from YouTube or Facebook fan pages, and there being just celebrities on Twitter, and that's it. I guess we could show this. So here's the little round areas, and you can see these other little round sections. And so either this is some kind of menu system for chapter to chapter to select, or they're just custom making this for some reason. Clearly it's just a looped animation, but yeah, this is less obvious as far as selecting levels, but it's more linear, I imagine, because you probably just go left for a previous level and right for the next level, and it is definitely more Lego in what you're seeing with the minifigs and the characters, instead of just a kind of flat 2D animated cartoon of the overworld map. Yeah, and I guess that's probably it. So we'll just end the stream here. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend to follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.